Hi, and welcome back to my studio. I'm glad you could join me today for this next sketch. Today I'm taking quite a complicated subject, photo, and trying to simplify it a little bit, and to just do an ink drawing today. The sketch itself is about 5 by 7 because I'm not using the whole sheet of paper. The ink really goes down smoothly on this multimedia paper, and it's quite nice to use. I'm using my Pilot Metropolitan with the fine nib, and because the ink flow from the nib is really good. I can hold the pen quite lightly and make lines without too much effort. I've kept this in real time this time just to show the process a little bit closer, because there are a few viewers that actually try to sketch along or sketch after I've done this. So I thought maybe I'd explain a few methods along the way, or things I do anyway. You can see that's quite complicated in the foreground. I'm not sure what's going on here, other than it looks like a lot of pottery. So I'm thinking these guys are potters, and they put their wares out the front to advertise. So what I thought I'd just start with the outline of the shapes in the foreground, just to try to simplify it in my mind to start with, because there's so much going on there and lots of shadows that you don't really know what's going on or what's there in detail. I use an iPad for looking at the photographs while I'm drawing. I could zoom in if I wanted to into the details, but that would lead to me making it too complicated, too detailed. So I don't zoom in. I just draw what I can see, basically. This is another drawing where I took a few moments beforehand to decide where to start the drawing. In this case, because the tree was quite prominent and quite an interesting part of the drawing to me, I started with the tree. After establishing where the tree would be, then I can put the house in, the porch, and the pottery in the foreground in relation to the tree. You can see I'm very light with my touch of the ink on the paper. One reason is porch posts, for example. I don't do a solid line right down to the bottom. I kind of do a dotted line and kind of fade out. That's partly because there's a lot of shadow down there and you don't really know what's going on. Another reason, in my mind anyway, is the porch and the house are in the background as opposed to the tree, which I kind of put as my center of interest. So I kind of wanted that porch to fade a little bit into the background. Of course, because you don't put in solid, thick lines, then you could always add to them, but you can't take them away if they're already there. usually edit the parts out where I'm measuring and kind of slowly trying to find the angles, but I just wanted to show that's what I'm doing. Sometimes I will do a ghost line, so not touching the paper, just going up and down in the direction. Your hand kind of gets used to the flow that way. And you can kind of estimate the angle you want without actually committing to the line. Another thing I am doing all the time, or most of the time anyway, is keeping the palm of my hand, or the meat of my hand there on the paper to steady my hand. Now, talking about mistakes, you can see a mistake there perhaps that I made. I continued the roof on to the left quite a ways because I had mistaken from the photograph that dark area to the left. I thought that in my mind that was also the roof, but probably a roof of another house or something. So you can see after that when I kind of shade and do some more hatching, I cover that up. So even though it is ink and quite permanent on the paper, the nice white paper, you can kind of jiggle things around and correct things as you go as well. I don't try to be too exact either, like making that line. I went on the tree a little bit, but it doesn't really matter in the long run. It's all very sketchy anyway. And if some lines cross here and there, it doesn't really matter. With the house, it's quite important to try to get the perspective on those lines correct. Take a few more minutes to figure on the angles of those. So I'm adding a few of the shapes of the pots that I can see without too much trouble. Like I'm not looking closely, like I said, or just going with what my eyes can see as far as shapes go. And that way, what you see, the vague shapes that you see, you can kind of interpret them, and then the viewer of the drawing can also look at that and hopefully interpret those shapes into the same objects. Or for that matter, they can see other things in the drawing that just create themselves, and that's fine, because art is always open to interpretation. What the viewer is seeing is a very personal. And in drawing those shapes down the bottom of the pottery and the stands that they're standing on, in my mind I'm kind of deciding how far I want to go as well. I usually don't go to the edge of the paper with my drawings, making more of a vignette kind of a style of drawing. So everything kind of fades off into nothingness around the edges. In reality, there is so much going on the porch and around the front of the house that deciding to simplify it and what to take out and leave in, it kind of adds a bit of mystery to the drawing too, that you don't put every single detail. And people can imagine what they want. So a few dark shapes become windows. A few dark things on the walls maybe become plaques, or maybe some other kind of pottery that people have made. That's all open to imagination and interpretation, which is fine, because that's a big part of art. It's letting the mind wander and looking at a drawing, painting, seeing the details or just the imagined details. For me, when I start putting the hatching on, the shading, the shadows, the drawing really starts to come to life. Adds that three-dimensional quality, even with one shadow on the roof coming from the chimney. The magic starts to happen. You can see some changes happened quite fast there. A lot of detail in the trees and the little bits and pieces. And that's because my camera decided to stop recording, and I didn't realize it until a few moments later. But it really didn't interrupt the video process too much, because most of the little dots and dashes and lines that you can see that weren't there before are quite self-explanatory. So this part of the drawing, I've got the basic shapes and lines and everything done. I've done a lot of the shading, and now I come back in to make a few of the lines stronger and more prominent. And in my mind, still remembering that I wanted the tree to kind of be, or the house to be more in the background. So I'm still not pressing hard with the pen. I'm just letting the nib float over the lines. And I'm also not doing completely solid lines. I do little dashes and dots as I go along. So a lot of times the nib is just skimming over the surface and just touching once in a while. And I kind of like that light, airy, sketchy feel that it produces that way. And then because I want the tree to be more prominent, more of a center of interest, I start to darken the edges of that one up to give it more of a three-dimensional, closer feel. Still not pressing hard, but just doing perhaps the lines closer together, thereby giving the illusion of a darker area, darker shadows. And it's completely up to you as the artist to decide how you want to interpret the subject. There are so many dark areas in that the drawing or the painting could very well end up too dark in places. There's some dark vines going along the front of the porch and creeping up some of the posts. So after looking at the drawing for a while, I decided, yeah, that adds a lot of life and a lot of interest to the sketch. And these people that live here have obviously a good appreciation of the natural and the man-made aspects of life. They've got their house and their pottery, works of art that they've created, and they want that surrounded by the natural world, entwined by it. I I'd even guess that a lot of their pottery is probably influenced by the natural world as well. With different lines, different directions, dots and dashes, I try to show different surfaces in the drawing from what I can see from the photograph. And when you add some cross-hatching, lines going different directions, it does give a different texture and a different darkness. And here I'm adding more shadows to the porch area. And hopefully keeping the darkness in the foreground a little bit more prominent. As we get closer to the end of this video and the drawing is taking on a nice shape right now, I want to take the time to thank you again for watching, and really gives the personal touch and the contact that I like when people comment. And even if you don't, that's fine. I realize that you're watching the video and hopefully enjoying it, and that you will come again. There I'm adding some cross-hatching to the window areas. It adds interest. It adds the shading that I want. When I start one of these drawings, I don't really have a definite plan on how to do it. I just do it bit by bit and sometimes let it create itself. But don't ever get discouraged that things don't quite go the way you want. Just take your time, and you've produced something. You've made a drawing, created something, and if it's not quite what you wanted, the next day do another one. Maybe a different subject, maybe the same one in a different way. But as long as you're drawing, that's the main thing. It's a great hobby, and it's a great relaxing thing to do most of the time. Anyway, I hope you liked this one, and you'll join me again next week. I hope you all take care and stay healthy and happy and keep drawing.